This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by a hero of the Horn, Kyrian of House Williams. Rand stood amid swirling storm winds, laughing wildly, even madly, arms upraised, and on the winds rode the small shapes, golden and scarlet. Like the strange figures on the dragon banner, hidden eyes watched Rand, and there was no telling whether he knew it.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Shadow Rising, Part 5, Chapters 28 through 34, and in our Village Council, we will be discussing Alana Masvani.
Can I just say, I feel like I finally hit that block of chapters when you said things will get real. And that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Things have gotten real. So, obviously we're assuming you have read this block of chapters. I mean, we go back to the Two Rivers and we finally get some big answers about Rand.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff. We learn a lot about... we get reconnected with some of the White Cloaks. We meet up with a couple Aes Sedai in the Two Rivers. We've got some new characters showing up. We've got more in the World of Dreams. And like you said, we've got Rand learning. We just got done with him learning a bunch of stuff in Rudion. And it's a lot. It is a lot. And it's cool and it's great. And it's kind of nice when you hit a batch of chapters like this where... we just kind of follow Perrin's arc. You know what I mean? We pick up with Perrin coming out of the Waygate, and then boom, we follow him through the Two Rivers, and it's pretty awesome, pretty epic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ez, I think we're gonna start with a pigeon today. We're gonna start with
We're gonna start with this, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it makes the cut, as we say in post production. We're not really sure. So this is from Sir Jonathan, and it's in reference to something Matt brought up last time. And I always kind of struggle with, first time doing this, what is spoiler for Matt? What is spoiler for the whole community? I believe I made an error. And even in making the error, as I try to think about how I explain it, I was trying to, I was weaving this back and forth to Matt, I don't know how much is too much to tell you, why I, said what I said or didn't say what I, wanted to say, and all of that kind of stuff is interesting. But I think we went back and forth on this. So if you want to skip ahead and you're worried that any of this discussion might be spoiler, I'm just going to give that warning now. I've been amazed at what people do think is spoiler and what they think isn't. And so it's a journey and we're learning, trying to figure it out. But, it's interesting. Well, and even the things, too, that, I'll skip over stuff that I'm I can't remember whether or not we dropped Lanfear's name in a specific book we were in a batch of chapters. I actually think your brother sent me a message. I said Lanfear, and he said, hey, we haven't said that. That's not
right.
You accidentally referred to a character who was incognito at the time as Lanfear, and I didn't even realize I did it. So, errors like that are going to happen, and I try to avoid them, but that's just because I'm speaking about a character, and I know that these characters have numerous names, that these characters are not going to be the same throughout the series. I wish I could tell you one more reason why, but I can't tell. These characters go through so many changes, and they are not always the same. As they start off in the series.
And and I will say that it does not bother me at all if I ask as a question and he lies to me. Not that in this particular situation he did, but if I ask you a question and you lie to me because I'm like, well, hold on a second, does this do this? And you just say no, and then later it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, it was actually yes. Doesn't bother me.
Because
I think it's hard. It's hard. If this were like a 3-book series, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, we'll just wait and see. But when it's like, even if we were doing a complete spoiler just it's all fair game. It's hard just because there's 14 books. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I you know.
Well, and actually, one of the things you'd asked me, there's been times where we stopped doing your predictions, or because people were even. I got a message that even they said they can't listen to Sir Matt's predictions because when you would say something, they caught themselves listening to how I responded to your prediction, whether I indicated like, oh, that's interesting, or like how enthusiastic was I about your prediction.
If I asked a question of like, oh well, so and so get together, and it's like, okay, well, you're just like, yeah.
Well, like when you were talking about Land and Nynaeve, you were talking about Land and Nynaeve, or you didn't see it coming, or whatever. I mean, any type of indication one way or the other, it's like, well, if all of a sudden the light bulb goes off for you based on something that I say, well, then you didn't get that from the text, and then people are thinking, oh, he got that from Ez. Right. But then there are times where I've lit a light bulb that was there, like we were talking about. We're actually going to do it in this chapter. I mean, if I brought up the character Alana Masvani, do we remember everywhere where she's been referenced, Matt, so far in the series? Like if I said, hey, when was the first time Alana Masvani was mentioned in the Wheel of Time series? And I ask you to tell me about her. What do you know so far? Matt would be like, I don't know. Matt might be like, no, I know exactly what happened or where she's from or whatever. But like for a lot of people, it's a recap. You go back and you kind of make the connections that are already there. And it kind of helps solidify the story moving forward. So, does that make sense? Because there's been.
Well, and I think there's things that naturally, like in this instance, I mean, and now that I've read it, I don't even know that I want to cover it because I feel like it might be a spoiler. Because I think some people might be in the same mindset that I was before I read this, and I think it drastically changes the way you think about the story.
I do too.
I do too. Now that I'm reading it, so can I just say this? We'll shout him out. Well, Jonathan, thank you you sent us a Patreon, or you sent us a message here, and I get what you're saying, and I guess basically it causes me to reevaluate some things that were said in the prologue. And I guess it's just without maybe trying to persuade people to think about this. Let me help you real quick. Let me help you.
Go ahead. So, like, if basically what you've learned now, and basically because we had this conversation that was generated by Sir Jonathan, it was great. He's actually 100% correct. I'm gonna read one part of it, and I don't think it's spoiler. Okay, it's just the part where he said. Well, no, it is. So I'm not going to read it.
Exactly. Yeah,
it is. Hold on. But hold on. So I answered something wrongly, and all I will say is that I was thinking about this in terms of only 7 ages. Only 7 ages. That's it. Right. That's all I'm going to say to him.
That's a good way to phrase it.
That's good enough. I think that's whatever. But to fully answer the question, I think you got to look at like there's so many more aspects that are going to come in the series, and it does alter how you like. If I really emphasize certain aspects of chapters or whatever, and this is super important, and you really hone in here, like it does change how you read the story. It would change kind of how you. And again, I guess like the problem is that I do that anyways. Right. Like I emphasize things that I think are cool.
And let me phrase it like this. In the Eye of the World, when Rand uses the power and the lightning comes down, right? Yeah. Like some of our listeners messaged me and said, I think Rand's using the power here. And it was their first read as well. Or like to get Bella to run faster.
Yeah.
But I think that even the purpose of that, whether like you think that or not, is that it will be revealed later as, oh, that was a big deal, right? Yeah. So if you pick up on it, that's great. But right. I think that it is intended. It's Robert Jordan's intention was that you would come to see that later when they say that's why Bella ran faster, and it's like, oh, okay. So some people may pick up on it earlier, some people may pick up on it later. Both are okay. And so I just think that that's where some people are, and some people aren't. So in response, just shout out to Jonathan for sending us this thing here. I guess I thought of what you had asked us I was thinking of something in a linear fashion, which because it's some of the questions that I raised last time.
Yeah.
As opposed to a sphere that's constantly spinning.
Yeah, a wheel.
I'm sure some people be like, okay, I think I know what they're talking about,
right,
but
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so it is a really good point, and it's the whole point. And like throughout the course of the entire series, it's reemphasized over and over and over again that this is a wheel of time, that the pattern is woven, and these things, just the ebbs and flows, and then all of this is, beyond memory. This is a beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the wheel of time, but this is a beginning. And so when you think about that, yes, that's always there in front of us. And so I was thinking more in terms, when I answered that question, of a specific set number of ages only. So
right.
It's all, okay. I guess it's all I'll say, because otherwise I start going off in these big, long-winded conversations about, the whole thing, the whole daggone, series. And, even as we were reading this, and I tell you right now, this might have been dark friend territory. This might have been dark friend territory to make me, start to then, because I was over here speaking out loud and like whisper reading through some of the book and text and flipping way ahead and checking stuff and like looking back. And I was like, oh shoot, hopefully Sir Matt's not listening to me over here, mumbling to myself about things in Wheel of Time. So what did I say earlier? I said I got to call your brother. I said I got to call Nick. I need to run something by him. And right. So Nick, I need Sir Nick on speed dial so I can run something by him real quick. So that is what it is. But I do appreciate it. And I there's a lot of times where you're going to hear me. I think I was talking about I think I mixed up the Koromor and Kara Khan. I think I used them interchangeably. Right. Backwards just the last episode once. I got it right the whole episode, and it was in our extended edition where I said Koromor instead of Kara Khan or something. I was like, what the heck? But anyways, so yeah, it's a lot, but I appreciate it, and I think a lesson is when Matt asks questions about the true nature of this series, the major takeaways and the big themes of not just of one book, but of the whole daggone series. I'm going to steer clear.
Right.
Steer clear of those answers and just say, read. This is kind of what Rafe Judkins says, read and find out, or watch and find out is what he says concerning the Wheel of Time TV series. So we shall read and find out. And there are things that, like Matt said, we're not doing chapter by chapter. So we are going to at times not emphasize something that maybe should have been emphasized. Yeah.
Yeah. And guys, by the way, once we finish all the chapters, well, then the show will be out as well. But it's just gonna be big. Hey, we're gonna go back over and cover a lot of these things, right? We're gonna do big episodes on that stuff. So, all right, as well. There's not really any show news currently because we are recording this just maybe a little ahead. But so shall we dive into the reread?
Well, yeah. Let's first dive into
the chapters.
Yeah. Well, before we do that, real quick, I want to hop into. We always miss this part. I want to get into. Yeah,
I always skip it.
You're good. You're good. The Village Council said at the top of the show we're going to talk about Alana Masvani, and she's brought up in this batch of chapters, and I simply wanted to bring her up because we first encounter her in The Great Hunt. She's a part of Swan's entourage, right, on the way to Faldara, and she kind of helps Egwene and Nynaeve on their way back to the White Tower. She gives them several lessons in channeling and, talks to Nynaeve about a possible, what she's dealing with being kind of a wilder, right? And having survived the power and learning how to use it, a tidbit in healing, growing up, but not having anybody to guide her in channeling. So she's there for all of that. And she does have a lot of questions about Rand. She is a member of the Circle of Aes Sedai who healed Matt from the evil of Shadar Logoth. And then Alana was present during Egwene's testing for becoming accepted, along with Shiriam Suan, Elida, she noticed a strange resonance in the Tarmon Gai'don. We talked about that, like having two of them near it and what that could kind of cause, the issue it caused during Egwene's testing. And at first, she blames herself for not stopping the test and for kind of risking Egwene. So she was there for all of that. And then Alana was also one of the Aes Sedai who was responsible for healing Mat from the taint of Shadar Logoth. And later, she was in the Two Rivers searching for more girls who could become novices for the White Tower when she was forced to hide from the children of the Light who killed one of her warders. And so that's where she's at. But that's one of those characters that when you meet, like this, I've said this at the start of the series, Robert Jordan will introduce a character, whether it's an innkeeper, like the first time I re-encountered Bail Doman showing up again, and then going away for a long time and showing up again. I was kind of like, wow, is this going to, okay, I need to pay attention to this guy. Like, I just kind of thought he was there and then he's gone. We won't see that guy. But no, he brings these characters back. And so Alana is one who is back with us now, and she's in this batch of chapters and is going to be, obviously she's significant here in the Two Rivers. So with that, yeah, that's where we're at now. That leads us kind of right into our reread, and we can talk about Perrin walking out of that Waygate.
Yeah. Okay, all right, well, today we are covering chapters 28 through 34. Chapter 28, To the Tower of Genji. 29, Homecoming, which is real serious.
Yeah, real serious.
Chapter 30, Beyond the Oak. 31, Assurances. 32, Questions to be Asked. 33, A New Weave in the Pattern. And 34, He Who Comes with the Dawn. Let me just say here, again, we had talked about, you keep saying, man, I think you're getting close. I think you're getting close. And wow, this to me is the block of chapters where things get real serious, man. I mean, just initial big, to me, the two big things out of this are everything that happens in the Two Rivers with Perrin and White Cloaks, Trollocs, and then that final chapter with Rand, where we learn about Rand's true parents, right? The Aiels, and everything kind of going on there. So this is some big stuff. This is pretty big stuff. I'm just on the get go, just kind of my review of this block of chapters. I feel like this is great that we finally also are getting some Perrin sort of not necessarily character development, because we've had character development along the way, but finally it's like I feel like we have something for Perrin that's like, okay, this is going to be Perrin's sort of journey, right? Rand's doing his thing, and Perrin's always just kind of felt like he's there. He's got this weird wolf stuff. What is it? What's it going to be? And now we get like, okay, I feel like this is going to be Perrin's arc, right, for the rest of the series. Like, this is going to be his sort of, okay, now this is the big momentous event for him going forward.
Yeah, exactly. This is the arc. This is where he's needed. The big struggle that the Ta'veren have leaving Rand from Tyr. Like, do I go? Do I leave? That pull where they kind of pull one another together, and they work through the pattern. Like, yeah, now Perrin is set up. He's essentially spun off from Rand, and he needs to handle this because Rand has to do his own thing. And yeah, this is a big arc for him. It's a big deal. And really what you'll see here is he and Fael, right? So even away from everyone else in the group, you kind of see he and Fael get to know one another. Nice little cast. We got Loyal there as well. Always good to have Loyal. Anytime we can follow him. Yeah, he's wonderful. Then you've got Bane and Chiad, and you've got Gaul. And so you've got this interesting kind of group. You've got an Ogier, Perrin, Fael, and then these Aiel, which decide to go with them. So it's just a crazy kind of group that make their way through the ways, which we kind of touched on in the extended edition last time. Not much though. Really just getting through the Black Wind there, and then coming out realizing that there are Trollocs in the Two Rivers, and what does that mean? And then are they using the ways to get through? Yes, they're using the ways to kind of enter and attack people in the two rivers. Now, who's behind all of that and what's going on is something that we're going to explore. But Perrin is back here. Really, what he is coming for is because of the White Cloaks. The Trollocs are kind of a secondary thought at first. He's coming back to really turn himself into the White Cloaks, hoping that they won't hurt any of his family, or just that they need to be dealt with in some way. Then he comes across the Trollocs, and so that's kind of a big deal. And Loyal does what he can there at the Waygate. Didn't want to destroy the Waygate, right? So he tries to make sure that it's closed. Tries to close it. So,
yeah, exactly. I'm just kind of thinking about how do we really want to attack this. I guess we can just kind of go in order. Just do Perrin first, and then come back to Rand, or we just want to do kind of bigger takeaways from it.
Yeah. So we started off with I guess we can just do big takeaways from each chapter if we want to. Really, I don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Chapter 28, I almost did in our village council the Tower of Genji, and I said, nope. Went and looked that up for a second. Thought to myself, not gonna do that.
Can't do that yet, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool, and I always think, maybe there's more there I could do. Have we learned enough about it? So no. The answer is no. But it's cool. I mean, we do get to kind of see it in this. We're introduced to a character named Slayer. I guess. What are your thoughts on Slayer? Coming across him in the dream world.
Yeah. Feels like he's going to be a big deal going forward. You know what I mean? And that obviously the name Slayer is not one that causes me to think that he's going to be a good guy.
Right.
I would even go so far to say, I don't think they said this, but I'm thinking he is one of the Forsaken. I think is probably it seems like we meet people and then there's something odd about them, and then later on you find out, oh yeah, they're a Forsaken, right? I mean, it's kind of like, okay, I feel like we've already been down this road. Like when I was like, here's this mysterious girl named Celine. Oh, but guess what? She's a Forsaken. Okay. Right. And so I'm like, is this just the same thing? Seems like that's probably where we're.
Yeah, because I mean, who's named Slayer, right? I mean, that's
exactly. It's not. Right. It's not. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then Hopper is the one who we encounter Hopper again, and he's the one who calls him that, right? Because they call him that because he kills things. I mean, he's in there killing, different things. So it's kind of wild. It is kind of neat though. One of my cool takeaways from Perrin kind of entering the dream world again is just that the way he can kind of travel, like he steps and he can shoot miles. I mean, he can step miles across the world. You know what I mean? And actually, he can start running and almost just like he can really leap from like mountaintop to mountaintop type of thing. Like that was kind of a cool, I guess, development in the world as he's chasing Slayer back to the Tower of Genji, and then he's kind of stopped by someone who he thinks is familiar and so on. And the woman has her hair, golden. It's braided, right? It's she's wearing yellow, wide trousers, boots. She's carrying a silver bow, which is hid under her cloak. And so you start to kind of, look for descriptions that arise and yeah. So that's one that's interesting. Perrin's noticing similarities. Really, something interesting too is when he looks up into I think it's the sky, right? He's looking up into the sky and he almost sees he sees Rand, who stood there right among the swirling storm wind. He sees Nynaeve and Elaine, and they are going through these shadowed buildings and hunting some dangerous beast. Matt was there where a road forked ahead of him. He flipped a coin and stared down one branch. Right, there's that, Egwene and a woman with long white hair. I mean, so he's seeing a lot of different things there in this. So what is that, right? I mean, I don't know. You have any thoughts or speculation on that as to what he's seeing there when he sees these things in the dream world?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everything we've seen in the dream world is either one actually happening, or I mean, it seems like because it feels like everything we've seen in the dream world up to this point has been they see it in however it is it's presented to them in the dream world, but things are actually happening at the same time, right? Like, remember when was this a dream or not? When Rand fights Balzamon, I think it's at the end of isn't it in a dream? But then he's actually like destroying like armies. Like, you remember when he destroys that like Trolloc army? Is that in a dream? When that takes place, I think it is. Maybe I'm thinking.
No, I know one of the things, the instances where we've talked about this, where it is actually, it's like when like Egwene is seeing Rand. So she's using the stone ring and she goes into the dream world, and then she sees Rand, and then we pick up later, and the same spot that she saw Rand was like in the woods leaving Moraine, headed to Tyr, and he's being attacked, sort of. He just runs away. And so like Perrin enters the dream world and sees Rand. Egwene enters and sees him. And so that's where you're saying things seem to be happening at the same time. Like, that's where you're saying it looked like they saw him where he currently was, or was that a dream? Or are they just able to see, or was he also in the dream world as well? That's the other thing, is like every time that Egwene is, are they seeing each other in this world as well? So
right, because when Egwene saw in the Dragon Reborn, when Rand is like by a campfire, you're like, is that one event, or is Rand at all these just different campfires as he's moving along and these people appear? Is that like, or was that like one campfire and he's seeing all of these things? And is that because Egwene is I think she's in the dream world at that point when she sees Rand, right? But Rand actually sees her.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so that's where you're saying like they're almost like you're seeing something that's, because Rand is also drifting asleep there too. So that's sort of why. I mean, that like, and there's the attack is happening. She sees Perrin. She jumps from one spot to the next spot. Let me think real quick. So she's about to go to, they've gone to the waste. When she was in Tyr, right, she does come across someone. Remember, the wise one who she comes across says that this is dangerous. So she actually meets someone else who is in the real world, right? Like asleep somewhere, and they both were in Teleron-Riyadh and had come across one another. So that is what Egwene does sometimes, is she comes across just people in Teleron-Riyadh, and that's a thing. But like what Perrin, there's also this idea that you could have, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm going to let you, really, I'm letting Matt, kind of come to his own conclusion on what he thinks of it, because that's why I asked the question about this. When Perrin steps in here and he looks into the sky and he sees all of these things, is he just, like you said, is he seeing them currently? Is he seeing them where they currently are and what they're currently going through, or what, yeah. And like you brought up, maybe it's current, maybe it's some current stuff. Maybe it's
right. And maybe his
things to come. And
it seems like his wolf dream is the same thing as everyone else's dreams. Because Moraine says it sounds like Teleron-Riyadh, but that's really all she says about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't say it's different or it is the same.
Right.
Is it one of these things where it's like, we just call it something different even though it's the same thing, or is there actually something different to it? An example for anyone who has read A Song of Ice and Fire, right, which Ez and I do a podcast on, are dragon dreams and green dreams the same thing? It's just that one people are associated with the Targaryens and the dragons, and so those get to be called dragon dreams. Although if you really look at it, it seems an awful lot like green dreams, which is what everyone else that does it is called. So I'm wondering if there's something specific, which again I'm sure we will get to. It's just not where we're at now, that Perrin's wolf dreams are like he can access Teleron-Riyadh, but he also can do different things than, say, Egwene can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so you're still, I mean, and this is one of those things too. And anyone who is a first time reader or reading through this, yeah, you're kind of like trying to put all those pieces together. And you're trying to figure out what are these things and make connections to stuff that you've already experienced and piece all that together. And it's why there is 14 books. There's more to tell, right? There's more stuff that's that we're gonna learn about this world and the connections between the characters who interact here. What can you do? What can't you do? Clearly, Egwene needs to be trained by the wise ones. And she says,
right,
like they're like, she decides to go with Rand, just to get that training versus going and hunting down the Black Aja.
And now I guess I think. Let me think about this for a second. So Egwene, right, is like a dreamer, right? So I think a lot of people can access Teleron Riyadh, right? You just there's different ways to access it. But then so Perrin does it through whatever this wolf thing is, wolf dreams. And so then Hopper is also incredibly interesting because he refers to everything by seems like almost ancient names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so is that because Hopper is in the past, but he can see way forward? And so to him, he just says these things? Or is it because he's just been around so long, that's how he knows them? And that's how he refers to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because even some of the Aes Sedai sometimes they'll say they'll say it was called this. Like when we talk about the ancient names for cities, right? I'm blanking on it right now. Manetheren, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously people have these sort of ties to the past because Matt speaks in the old tongue sometimes, right? Or is it possible that some people are in the past doing stuff in the future?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean,
there we go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure in some point in this series we will meet somebody who is in the past being able to do. I mean, if it's a wheel, right, and it goes around. I mean, what's
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things you were hinting on there is how can you enter into this world, right? And so yeah, I mean, just by sleeping, you can almost dream yourself in there, and you stay for a few seconds, and then boom, you're gone. Or you could, we have the stone ring that the girls use to kind of take them, they do that on purpose, touches their skin, that can get them there. You have strong channelers, like I said, Rand, who is drifting off asleep and ends up going there as well. Perrin, with his abilities, there you go. So. What's in that? Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
yeah.
Yeah. You're entering that, and they're all kind of seeing each other, and so all the connections are kind of there, and it's just interesting to think about the powers there, what you learn. I mean, you go to a place, right? You go to a Tower of Genji. What the heck is that? And then you get there, and you get warned not to go in. And if you go in, it's difficult to leave. Don't chase that guy, and then somebody else shows up who is familiar also to Perrin, who says the prescripts say not to say any of this stuff. Let's get out of here. Don't warn this guy about any of that stuff. You got to go. So, there's a lot going on in this realm.
Right. Well, okay. Well, we can finish this sort of chapter by saying that Hopper also tells Perrin, right, as he's getting ready to leave. Hopper tells him Perrin he shouldn't go home, says there's no wolves there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also tells him that you need to. Perrin says he has to go home, right? And Hopper tells him to take care that the last hunt is drawing near.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I know Hopper. Good old Hopper. Love Hopper. He's that spirit guide, right? Or he's there kind of helping Perrin through, telling him to leave. It's too dangerous. Sounds a lot like the wise ones, or when they showed up when they first met Egwene, and we're kind of telling her hey, you need trained in this. I don't care if you're air quote Aes Sedai or not. You definitely need more training. It's a dangerous place, and we'll get more on it. It's coming, but yeah. So that's just interesting, and we could speculate more on what he's seeing there and how he gets there. I mean, he pretty much, by the way, but he's telling Gaul, like, hey, you may have to kick me awake. I'm gonna go asleep, and like he puts himself there, like he enters the dream world, and Egwene and others have had to kind of use like a Tarmon Gai'don to get there. So clearly his connection is somewhat stronger, and there's something there with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chapter 29, Homecoming. So this is where it all goes south fast. I will say, they're heading back, right? Parents sort of heading back, to the two rivers. Parents worrying about, if Slayer is going to walk, the two rivers, right? Walked, if he's going to dream walk there. And then parents also kind of worrying about the White Cloaks, and that he thinks, finds out that they've been searching for his family.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, they have. And yeah, it's not good. And actually, Bran will tell him, he basically says, yeah, like they've attacked your family. And he was like, oh, Perrin kind of thinks, where did you relocate them? Did they burn the barn down? Or are they somewhere else? And he says, no, son, your family have been killed. And Perrin kind of can't believe it. He's shocked. And not just, one parent or a sibling, or they're all dead.
The whole family.
Yeah. And it is just crazy. It is such I remember when I first came across this and just how it was heartbreaking, man. It was like, I was stunned. I could not believe it. And Perrin, just like the way he breaks down, how upset he is, just the moment that he has Faile and what she's able to do for him. They're all buried out, under the apple tree. We learned that from Abel and Tam later. Like, it is so freaking sad. And, yeah. So, who's behind all of that? I mean, why are there's White Cloaks? Why aren't the White Cloaks doing anything about these Trollocs? These Trolloc attacks are happening, and, you got a character, Lord Luke, running around, kind of blending chapters here, but supposedly helping people to, prepare and get ready and fight off these things. And this was personal. This is, you can tell this is attacked. It's not just one farm. I mean, they really went after the Ibarra family. And yeah, so it's wild. Mm-hmm. It's all an attempt to kind of draw one of these Ta'veren to the two rivers. So,
yeah. And so, Perrin ends up going and kind of talking to a lot of the villagers, right? And he's talking to them. They're kind of asking, why are the White Cloaks after you? And he says, well, it's because he killed one of them, and so he thinks they're a dark friend. And I really liked where he's a lot of them believe him, because he says, if it seems to me, if you don't do anything that they don't like, you're going to get labeled as a dark friend.
Yeah. And at first, like, everyone is sort of like, they've heard a bunch of what they hear about a person that they know doesn't match this, Perrin and these boys who left and now have grown into men and come back, and Perrin's here, and to hear all that stuff and to say, that doesn't fit with who I know. And then to have him show up there and almost reaffirm that, like, seeing what he's going through, putting the pieces together, these people know they're being lied to, and that the White Cloaks are abusing that power, or that ability just to call anybody a dark friend and have a village turn on people. And what's interesting, and what Moiraine kind of tells us in the first book, is that this is Manetheren, man. Like the old blood is is still running strong here, and these people are not going to be they're not easily manipulated that way, I guess. And so they're going to quietly, they're assessing everything and evaluating or whatever, and it really just takes. I don't think if Perrin would have never showed up here, I think they still would have done what they could among themselves. They never would have let the White Cloaks completely pervert their mind and their thinking towards Perrin. At least those who knew him. I'm talking like Emmons Field here or whatever. But yeah, because they're that strong-willed of people, and So it's pretty cool to see almost instantly. Like Jordan, he doesn't mess around. It's like they instantly kind of get behind him, rally behind him. I believe you, and knowing you since you're a boy, and so on. And so his village quickly gets behind him, and trying to figure out what to do. And now, like if they do show up, they are going to take him. They're going to arrest him. So where do you put Perrin? And that's how we get reintroduced to Alana, Mosvani, and Varen. And we realize that there are Aes Sedai here in the two rivers. Like, what is going on? It's too much. Perrin says later, it's too much coincidence. Way too much. You find out that Tam is there, Abel is there, and that's Matt's brother, or Matt's father, but that his sisters had been taken by the White Cloaks, and it's wild. And actually, the reason the Aes Sedai are there, right? Varen says that they're there because they're looking for strong female channelers, and that since Egwene and Nynaeve came from this village, perhaps there were more among them that had the gift, that had the talent, that had the spark, and they went in and looked. They're going in there to kind of look for it. Also when you have this many powerful Ta'veren coming out of one village, you might want to go investigate that village, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do, and they talk about how there's a lot of old power here, and it's how they say that it's completely unnatural that you would find any, because I think they say, I don't know if it's this chapter, but it might be the next one where he's talking to them, and they say, "Wow, we think we found a couple girls who could be Aes Sedai right now."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they're very much interested in their ability of some of these girls, to channel and things like that for sure. So,
we also learn about what's going on with the White Cloaks here, and that some of them seem to be commanded by Padon Fane.
Yeah.
And that he's kind of got some authority with the White Cloaks. And so he is going by the name Ordeith, which we do know. Mm-hmm. And so, but that we don't really, there's not a ton more on that, but just that he's got some authority and he hates the boys.
Yeah. He does. He does. And what he's doing, he's drawing upon Dane Bornhold's hatred of Perrin too. And I think if Bornhold didn't have some personal kind of grudge against Perrin, he probably would have been able to see through some of what Ordeith is doing, because he already is watching him. He's already put 2 men on him. Maybe this is the second or third. I don't know how many times he's done it, but seemingly he's watching Ordeith, and every time he sends men out, those men end up being killed in a Trolloc raid or something. Something happens to them. So he can't even necessarily keep eyes on them. And all the Trolloc raids that happen on the main company seem to be happening on Dane Bornhold himself. And he just thinks there's just something else going on here with Ordeith. And he's not even completely convinced, but yet he was sent here by the Lord Commander, and so they're using him, and that's that. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic that's going on there. Ordeith is obsessed with getting Althor, to come back, and then Dane Bornhold is super happy that Perrin came back. So
well, not for long. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah. Oh, and then one more thing on that too is the Ordeith, the men. He does have some men kind of following him, right, from the White Cloaks that are starting to go. Their cloaks are not as white. Their tools and equipment are not as well kept, and they're starting to look a little rough, ruffian type characters. And so they're hanging out with him more and more, almost like he's converting or turning them in some way, to his cause. So
yeah. And Daisy Conger, we also find out she's now the wisdom since Nynaeve is left.
Yeah.
Okay. So in chapter 30, Beyond the Oak, and chapter 29 ends with Perrin just breaking down, right? And then chapter 30 is he's kind of kind of finishing up, crying, after, and then Fael's comforting him. So, brownie points for Fael there. So this chapter actually, it starts off, there's a little bit of humor, right? You get Master Alviel. They're kind of, gathering around, figuring out what their plan is. Kind of just a funny moment, right, where Master Alvier, he kind of looks into that main room there, and he's like, "There's an ogier in the kitchen."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just kind of this like funny sight, like.
yeah. It's funny how they all Robert Jordan will talk about the composure of characters and when it breaks and when it doesn't, and how it contrasts. Certain moments where if you're from the village council and you keep your composure and the women maybe lost their composure, versus like certain times when the men lost their composure but the women kept theirs. He's always doing this back and forth of like trying to show like Marin in this. I mean, she's very composed, she's very whatever, but he's kind of walking around like there's freaking ogier in the kitchen.
I know, it's great.
That's funny. Yeah. So that's all. That kind of just to set. They're also looking for making sure they've got basically is there a place for everybody to kind of stay. And that's when the women's circle kind of becomes more of a big deal. And like we said, where Marin will eventually tell them about Aes Sedai and help and aid that they can kind of get, which is cool. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Let me see. So there's some other stuff. Yeah, as you said, they're trying to find out where can everybody stay, right, in this town. They're thinking about like all kinds of different things. Senbui's there talking about he mistakes Loyal for a Trolloc, right? He's so it's definitely odd times. Sen calls Perrin a dark friend.
Oh, dude, Senbui just kind of he's something else. I mean, he's got more sense than that. This was basically what a lot of the characters will say to him. You got more sense than this, Sen, right? But he just jumps to these crazy. He's a Trolloc. He's a dark friend. It's like, whoa, yeah.
Well, he's lucky Perrin stopped Fael, because Fael's about to waste him.
Oh yeah, and she will.
Yeah,
she will. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's kind of funny. So that's just sort of the intro there to him getting back. The Wine Spring Inn again. Nice to see the Wine Spring Inn and get back there and hang out for a little bit. Moving on, I guess just a bit here. So chapter 31. Just touching on these briefly. We kind of a little bit of this we already went over with Alana Musvani, but really wanted to talk about how once you finally get to Tam and Abel. So this would be Rand's father and Matt's father. We're talking about how is everybody, and actually that was something that Marin Alvier was asking as well. She mentioned that Egwene, how's she doing? Nynaeve, and the writing of letters back and forth, and they're just kind of wanting those assurances that everything is okay. Tam and Abel, same type of thing, wanting to know that things are all right. And we find out they actually did go to Tar Valon and and tried to get some information. But yeah. And it's right after that Tam will start to go tell Perrin again about the this news surrounding his family. And it's Perrin basically says, I already know, and kind of thanks him, doesn't want to go back to that topic again, but Tam it was just that concern that he has for his son's best friend, who is his whole family was just killed. And these are friends of Tam's as well, people that he lived with and knew. I mean, it's a tight-knit kind of community, and it's an awful thing. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's something. But and actually, so then this is where there's a slight little mention here about a mysterious someone, we don't know who, is killing animals just at random. They kill a raven here just a second ago, which they thought was maybe a spy, right? And it's Perrin thinks it's Slayer. Yeah. Kind of thinks to himself like, well, I met this interesting guy when I first showed up here. There's a bunch of random dead animals that are just left there. So
yeah, and then we get the sickest line in the whole chapter, right? Where Perrin's telling him that the Trollocs have this I think it's in the Aiel Waste, right? They refer to it as the dying ground, right? Because it's like if Trollocs go there, you're gonna die. And he says, I intend to turn the two rivers into a dying ground.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's gonna kill every single Trolloc that. Yeah, every single one of them in the Two Rivers. He is bent on that for sure. Yeah. So, well, so in the midst of all that, I think we talked a little bit about Matt's sisters and the other the Luhans being kind of captured by the White Cloaks, taken prisoner. Dane Bornhold holding them, hoping maybe to kind of always wanting word on Perrin. And is he near? Is he coming? So he's got people that are precious to him, and possibly this might draw him, to their camp. And actually, it's straight up what Perrin is going to do. Is he's going to ride up to their camp and sneak in there and rescue them. He kind of runs this rescue mission, if you will. So, yeah. The Aiel go with them, and also that's a big deal too, right? You have the Aiel, which we know how epic they are, and they can kind of scout ahead. They're not going to ride any horse, but they're definitely going to scout ahead. You still have the dynamic. We haven't mentioned Fael enough. Her wanting to kind of she is the whole time. When you think about this from Fael's perspective, she's watching Perrin. She's learning these are his people. She's quickly trying to. She sees how Marin Alvir controls, or I guess, controls is maybe not a good word, but like how handles situations that maybe are tense or whatever between her husband or members of the village council, and she almost kind of admires her. And so this whole time as they're going to the White Cloak camp, Fael is like, I'm going to go with you, but she starts to use a different persuasive tactic, I guess, right? And I'm not fluent in women's circle business, so I don't know exactly all the nuances of it or what it is, but it's cool. It's just cool to see her admire these people and admire these women and learn from them and want to learn from them, because this is her, Perrin is who she loves. She is attached to Perrin. She wants to be with Perrin, and now she's at his home and she's trying to maybe almost adopt some of these things. These are women who grew up around him and know how to maybe kind of move pieces into place that don't want to be moved, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to kind of word that, but
yeah, no, yeah, she's adjusting. She's seeing, she's, yeah, as you said. I mean, basically, this could be her people, right? Because it's Perrin's people. So, and then so we have that. So then the rest of this chapter kind of switches perspectives, and I think we talked about this a little bit, right? Dane Bornhold's point of view and Ordeith's. Right.
Yeah, we did.
The kind of view. So we just talked about that a little bit. In that, Dane Bornhold does not like Perrin, and Ordeith hates all of them. So
yeah,
is kind of where that goes. Ordeith goes back to his part of the camp. He feels one of the three somewhere south, and so they're planning. They're kind of planning that. So. And he's just kind of ready to do his bidding, is where it ultimately just kind of goes. So that leads us into chapter 32, questions to be asked.
Yeah.
So their parents having breakfast. Varen comes in. She tells him to hurry up. It's time to get going. It's a long ride to the White Cloaks camp. He's surprised, Varen's going to join them. Alana stays behind. So does Loyal. He wants to go, right, but he just feels like he'd attract too much attention.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah. Fael just kind of assumes she's welcome onto this trip, and Perrin tells her he'd enjoy her company, so that's kind of good. The three Aiel refuse to ride. They'll keep up with the party from the woods, beside the road. They want to stay out of sight, so they won't attract too much attention.
Yeah.
And this Perrin sees like an abandoned farmhouse. He asks Tam how many Trollocs he thinks are in the Two Rivers. His response is around 200, but he thinks it'll be a bit. He has to think about it a little bit longer. Than he admits maybe there's more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so really, they're making their way. They've got quite a bit. They've got some ground to cover, and they come across this abandoned farmhouse, like you said, and they're worried about Trolloc attacks, and maybe is this a trap of some kind? It looks abandoned or whatever. So that's when that kind of conversation comes up. And then midday, they stop around the Alcine farm. So Will Alcine is one of the characters we meet in Eye of the Out the Gate. He's one of these Two Rivers guys who's a good looking guy and well kind of liked there, and so it's neat to kind of see him emerge and show up again, and he's important. So we stop in here and we talk to these individuals, and they get their kind of a meal, and he realizes it's kind of crowded here, even though it's a big farm. They've taken in residents of 2 other farms that are just near the West Wood. So you have people who are finding strength in numbers and are kind of gathering together, and hopefully they could fend off some Trolloc attacks. You've got some young boys up on the roof with some longbow action possibly, and they're ready to take out some Trollocs if they show up. So and they're here's where we kind of get on this arc of like Perrin starting to explain what he thinks about the White Cloaks, and he kind of gets into how he was almost forced into killing one of them and how he was attacked, and explains some of that. And the people are kind of shocked by that story, but then he also tells them that the man Padon Fane, who they all know is the peddler, is with the White Cloaks, and that he knows him to be a dark friend. So you kind of have the opposite when we started off here, which is Perrin being called a dark friend. And now, like, that's why I kind of set up the whole idea that they trust Perrin, they know Perrin, they grew up with him. And so from their point of view, if he's going to go, that's killing and calling people dark friend is not something that you typically do in the Two Rivers. It's very rare. They're not that type of people. They're not into major gossip. Like, if you're going to make a call like that, it's a big deal. And so for Perrin to do that is huge, and he's just calling it like it is. He's just telling the truth, and they don't believe at first, but Perrin is one of their own, so he's able to stay there and get kind of this meal with them and hang out, and then they spy another individual showing up who we know as Lord Luke. Okay, he's not the Luke we like from Star Wars. Okay,
right.
So this is Lord Luke, and Perrin doesn't like him. Out the gate, he seems arrogant. He's a lord. I mean, he's coming in sort of like throwing his weight around a little bit, talking about how to protect themselves, and everyone kind of really seems to buy whatever he's selling, and Perrin doesn't. So it's odd that these people are able to kind of resist the White Cloaks and some of their, I mean, again, like over time, they're wearing down on these Two River folk, and they're kind of getting to them a little bit, and they do need help. They haven't completely kind of bonded together. They are being attacked. Farms are being destroyed. So yeah, if you're a hero of the Horn, as Lord Luke, kind of a hunter of the Horn, excuse me, has indicated, then this person must have experience in combat and can help us out in some way. So let's buy into what he's saying. White Cloaks, same thing. Surely they're here to do good. They're kind of thinking the best of people, and Perrin's not buying anything that this guy's selling.
Right. And then Lord Luke says he's a hunter for the Horn, which feels an awful lot like an excuse just about anybody can use at any point.
Yeah.
Why are you here? Well, I'm hunting for the Horn. Oh, okay. It's like it feels like that's just a common thing just about any sort of sketchy looking person will say.
Yeah, their reason for being in an area where they're not normally in or whatever.
I'm hunting for the Horn of Valier.
Ironically, Fail is hunter of the Horn.
I know. Why are you in this secret room in the White Tower? Well, the Horn of Valier could be here. Well, okay, I guess.
Yeah. We'll allow it. Yeah,
we'll allow it. All right.
Right. Yeah. So, he does notice Varen Sedai, and he doesn't like the idea that an Aes Sedai is there. That seems to be off-putting. So, like, I guess since we don't know fully, it's a good time to kind of ask you, what are your thoughts on Lord Luke? It's just, he seems sketchy as all get out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't trust just about any new character we come across. I immediately think, hold on a second, is this a dark friend? In a way, I'm a little bit like a White Cloak, but I would never want to be a White Cloak because I think they're all dark friends.
Wow.
So, I just, I like Tom Maryland's train of thought. I just don't trust anybody. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's telling them some. I mean, he is giving them maybe some good advice a little bit, and kind of like how to, he tells people kind of maybe if you spread out a little bit, it won't. You might do, do better. He says, or no, excuse me. He tells the people they should all pack up and gather at one place, like Watch Hill, or something like that. This is where they all kind of protest, and basically they all tell him to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's that interaction, like the Taviran nature that's coming out in Perrin, and that's what Varen is kind of highly interested in, wants to kind of go along to see what that looks like and study it, because she's from the Brown Aja, and that's, knowledge and understanding is definitely up her alley and what she's kind of seeking. So yeah, that's the first half of that, and then basically he's able to recruit some people on his way to Watch Hill, right, and get some of them to come with him. And they go in and they're literally gonna sneak into this White Cloak camp and make their rescue attempt, which is awesome. So, and Fael ends up saving Perrin. Really, he's getting strangled. I mean, they're sneaking through, and she ends up being, stepping up and helping them out. Yeah, clutch. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, and which leads us into chapter 34, which is kind of its own thing. We go back, man. This is a big one here. He who comes with the dawn.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Rand and Matt. They return to the camp to learn that Moraine and Aviendha have both gone to Rudion, and then Rand is going to learn about his parents.
Yep.
Crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's the thing about this chapter, and the thing I found really interesting is, besides obviously us learning about Rand's parents, that's obviously incredibly interesting in itself. But there's a moment in it in which it's the way that Rand kind of takes the news, and he talks about how it was like it was kind of like losing something that he never had. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of just takes it in stride. Right. Like it's not really this big, huge emotional thing. And Egwene kind of gets upset with him a little bit about it. She felt like he should have been kind of like more sad about it. And so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's what's the attachment there? These are people he's hearing about
never
names
known.
And yeah. I mean, since he was a child.
Right. He's just always viewed Tam as his father.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, okay. So that was just kind of my initial kind of thought about it. So, basically the chapter happens, Rand and Matt, they kind of make their way back to camp. They're both in bad shape. They're bleeding. Rand's kind of hurrying back. He feels like, he must, he's trying to save the world, man.
Yeah.
You got Briar is waiting for them at the edge of this camp. He's got a bag of water. Before they can get through, Cúladon demands to know where Muradin is, and he accuses Rand and Matt of killing him. And the Shido start flinging spears at them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's So as proof, Cúladon points to Matt's oddly shaped spear and claims that he went into the city armed, which we're not allowed we're not allowed to do.
Right.
Briar kind of stands in and tests the fact that they weren't armed when they went into Rudion. Briar demands Rand show the signs. It only takes Rand a moment to kind of understand what she means. Excuse me, and then kind of rolls back, to show them or to show that scarlet and gold dragon on his arm.
He's got the dragons. He's got the dragons now. I mean, he's come with the dawn, and so yeah, it's a couple important, I guess, takeaways. When we were last in Rudion, we kind of went through all those visions, and we went all the way back to the beginning, and I say air quote, the beginning. We'll call it a beginning. But we walked back through Rand's ancestors. While Rand was in there, he saw Muradin, who is Couladin's brother. And he was going in to be the clan chief for the Shido Aiel, for their clan. And he doesn't make it. We can actually see when Rand is in there, he's realizing that whatever, and they say, not everybody makes it out. The truth, it won't always set you free, or maybe it'll set you free in a way that like you didn't expect, because he's dead. All right. He was consumed by what he saw. And, so anyways, he comes out of there. Couladin is immediately accusing him of all these things. They start throwing spears. So the Shido are something we got to watch out for. And he's showing them all of the signs. One thing that the Aiel wise ones say a lot of is that, he brings change, right? That Rand brings change, and that they kind of know, even when he violates some of their customs or things are not quite right. We kind of said this with Matt when he was going to take Matt in. If he really is the Karakan and he is the chief of chiefs, then, things are going to change. And that's sort of what their prophecies indicate. But yeah, he's back here and it's a big deal. Pretty cool. Shido are in trouble for sure for attacking Rand. That's not a good thing. And Lan and Ruark are both warning him to watch out for Couladin because he's definitely trouble. So, let's see. Then they're wounded, right? So they enter the tent, and then they're taken care of. The wise ones take care of him, and they discuss, how to get the clan chiefs together. Ruark proposes to gather them at a place called Al Kerdal, where something like the piece of Rudion holds. So it's a sacred place where Al Kerdal is you can go there, and it's for these big meetings between these clans that have blood feuds, and it's a place where we can all gather, get everybody there. And Matt actually accidentally translates what he says into Golden Bowl. So we realize that Matt has come out and he's fluent in the old tongue, completely fluent. We were getting bits of it, little bits here and there, but now not only is he speaking it, but he can interpret it. He can understand it when he hears it, so he just keeps leveling up in odd ways, very odd ways. And then Ruark also suggests that the wise ones, he suggests asking the wise ones to visit the clan chiefs in their dreams and summon them to Al Kerdal. The wise ones seem hesitant to do this, but that they agree to do it at Rand's request. So it's not something that they would maybe normally do. This seems kind of extreme, almost like this is their power. It's this thing that they choose when to use. But if Rand says, I need this, and he does, when he comes out of Rudion, he realizes Moraine is still in there, and he is desperate to move. He is desperate to make his move. He's already thinking about things that he's learned, people who are on his tail, tracking him, and he wants to go quickly. But he can't. He can't yet. There's time. They got to wait. They got to move all these chiefs together, get them all centralized. The wise ones have to go enter their dreams, and that's cool, right? So we were talking about the dream world, where in which they can go visit someone in their dream and tell them to come to this place at this time. Bring your clan now. It's a crazy way to kind of communicate. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Okay, now this is the part I think you wanted to talk about, though, right? Which is they switched to this conversation with his mom, and that, this is kind of, I know people are going to want to hear some of this, which is what's revealed is. So that we talk about a lot of this is like there's a lot of prophecy talk in here, and talking about he has the signs that he is he who comes with the dawn. What are the prophecies? What do they kind of say? And it leads us into this conversation about his mother and how she was found, right? That his mother was found in the waste, close to death, because an Aes Sedai by the name of Gitara Moroso had a foretelling saying that she must dwell among the maidens of the spear, or a disaster would befall the world. So his mother, it seems like, again, this was an Aes Sedai telling his mother, go to the waste. She's traveling in the waste, almost dead. And the maidens find her and they bring her in and they raise her, or they help her grow among their society. And so his mother was not, Aiel. His father, Janduin, or Jonduin, maybe is how you say it, is this young clan chief who falls in love with his mother, and there's more on him later. He's actually pretty cool. I don't remember if in that part if that's where Ruark really talks him up and talks about his ability to unite the clans and what a really good leader he was, and how passionately in love he was with Rand's mom.
A little bit. What he says is, he said he's maybe I read another chapter ahead, but we're going to be there next time anyway, so it's not that much further along. Basically, he talks about how, she was actually not. When she got there, she wasn't really that good as a maiden of this. She couldn't really fight or do anything, but he just found her so beautiful that he took her in, and then actually she gets pregnant, and the rules are that you're a maiden who is carrying a child cannot carry the spear, and so you're actually supposed to go back, right, and not do that. And then what ends up happening ultimately is she ends up having childbirth and dying, right, in this war, and then he kind of he thinks it's all his fault. He thinks it's all 100% his fault.
Yeah, and you asked me kind of before we started. You were asking about the Aiel War and this.
I don't think they've said why it actually ever took place.
Yeah, and they have hinted a little bit, but it's, again, this is where I say it's all in bits and pieces, and so this is where, and I know what I'm gonna say, so I only say this as disclaimer, but this is where you get into, do you connect all the dots, or do you leave the dots disconnected, and then you eventually get more of the pieces, and then Matt will make the connection himself. But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying, because
no, yeah, absolutely.
Because
that's
I'm
fine.
not gonna
we can leave it. We can leave it like that, and maybe it has, and and then that's something else you and I were talking about before we came on is, and we talked about it a little bit too, with sometimes the pieces are there, and I think for somebody it's easy to once you've read it, you're like, well, I think it's easy to pick up those pieces, because I remember watching a big spoiler for Game of Thrones, by the way. I remember watching it and talking to some people, and you and I have read the books, and we knew what was coming. The big kind of reveal of the series, again, spoilers for Game of Thrones, and it hasn't happened in the books yet, but when we find out, we see that Tower of Joy scene at the end of season 6, where it's oh my God, hey, Jon Snow is legitimately the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark.
Yeah.
And we're our mind, everything's good. But then I remember some people who had only watched the show and they were kind of confused, and they're wait, hold on a second, because they don't talk about it that much in the show of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, and it's this huge epic reveal. But the book readers are oh my God, this is such a bit, where the show people were even kind of oh, this is big, but I guess they, it didn't hit as hard as us, because we knew that was going to be the case pretty much, and all of this stuff. And so I think that's kind of a thing too here is, there's pieces of the puzzle. We don't have the whole puzzle, so we once you've seen the whole puzzle, it's a lot easier to oh yeah, well, this piece will go here, and this one will go here, and this one will go here.
Yeah, and Matt and I have talked about this. We kind of err on the side of, we're erring on the side of caution, in that most of the readers who come through and who are going to enter into this podcast are people either they've never read it before and they're prepping for the TV show and they want to know some stuff, or they watch the TV show and they're coming back through going, I want to check this book series out. And so they have no idea. And I'll give you an example.
And I don't know. Again, this is my first read through, so.
Yeah. And so that's why the deeper we get into this, you even sometimes, even if it was introduced or it was mentioned in, well, guys, it was mentioned in The Great Hunt, or it was mentioned in The Eye of the World, I'll tell you what happened to me my first read through. I remember when I was trying to figure out the IEO war, I was like, no, wait a second. And it's something I've heard Matt kind of say a little bit, which is like, now which came first? And I was thinking to myself, like Arthur Hawkwing, Trolloc Wars, IEO War, like all these, you start to wonder what happened when, how long ago are we talking here? Okay, so the IEO War was talking about his parents, so it's a little bit closer. This other stuff is like much older, Arthur Hawkwing, Empire stuff, old names of stuff. It's easier to make all those connections when you've gotten through it. It is an overwhelming kind of like, there's so many names, places, locations, and stuff to keep track of that it's a lot. You know what I mean? Like sometimes even the word like Damani can be confusing because it seems to it's similar and it means a couple different things, or it's in reference to a couple different things. So yeah, it's
Yeah, The Shadow Rising, by the way, is the second largest book. And it is only just short of what is that? The Lord of Chaos. So
yeah,
and it is significantly bigger than it is by far the biggest one we read, and it's the second largest, and most of the other books really aren't even close. So it's like these next three are three of the largest until you get to like the final book. They are the three largest books.
Yeah. It's intense. I mean, it's the setup. I kind of this next arc trilogy or whatever it's a massive setup. We learn a lot about what you can and can't do in this world and who all the big players are, and it just picks up. I mean, Jordan, like I've said it many times, he just trusts you as a reader to just keep plowing ahead, and he knows some of this stuff is subtle, and like what we've been talking about this whole episode is some of these things come, they're subtle, they're if you keep reading, it's going to come back. He's going to keep bringing in these characters. There's those layers, like a small little mention about the Dark Friend social, something in the prologue, all that stuff's going to pay off. Things with men, there's payoff in all of that, but it's subtly dropped, throughout, and you just got to kind of keep pushing forward, and it'll all be revealed, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. All right. As well, I think that is it for us today. Let me pull up the thing here just to see.
Hey, we should mention
headed to next time.
Yeah. We should be mentioning. You can follow us on Twitter. It's probably our most active piece of social media, where I'm on Twitter quite a bit there. At the Horn of Valir. So if you don't want to join up on Patreon or whatever, you can do that. We do have a Facebook page. We haven't really done much with that yet, but as we get close to the show, we definitely will do that too. So you can like us on Facebook. Again, at the Horn of Valir there. And then, excuse me, on Patreon, it's just www.patreon.com/the Horn of Valir. Just type in the Horn of Valir or Heroes of the Horn. You can find us over there, and we'd love to have you. We just had a few more people sign up, and pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I think we're gearing up for this, and I got a couple messages, by the way, from patrons just saying they really appreciate the book club, and I appreciate you guys. And as we do more episodes, I plan on getting you guys some more shout outs and things like that. It's something we've never done before. It's something that's totally different for us. Typically we come at it a completely different angle. I mean, the idea was, do we sit? How long do you think it would have taken Matt to read 14 books? I mean, it took me like 2 years. It took me just reading through it. So we could have said, the show's announced, like, you know what, just wait, Matt, you go ahead and read 14 books and then we'll start the thing. But no, we decided, let's take a different approach on it, and it's been a journey, it's an adventure, and it's a lot of fun. And I learned stuff from it too. I'm sitting here, before this show, I think I probably spent 45 minutes looking up stuff based upon what Sir Jonathan had sent me, and it was more just to say, okay, fine, I'm going to go do something I haven't done since the days where my buddy Tom and I used to sit down across from each other at Barnes & Noble and discuss A Memory of Light and all the events, and then tie it all the way back to the daggone prologue in the Eye of the World. And I hadn't done that in a long time, and so it was actually really good to kind of go do that. And it's something that from time to time always needs to go do, and it's great. This series is awesome. It is such a good series. I love it. I'm excited for the show, and I'm excited just to kind of continue to watch Matt's reaction as we go through all of this. It's just like, by the end of this book, it is. I think you're just gonna be like, wow. Mm-hmm. The wow factor at the end of this is just fantastic. This is
I will say this book I feel like it is becoming my second favorite.
Okay.
So I feel like where I haven't finished it yet, but I feel like at the end of this I will rank it Great Hunt, Shadow Rising, Eye of the World, Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. Our friend, shout out to our friend Sir Jimmy, who kind of similar style ranking. Basically put the Shadow Rising. Some people put it up there as their like number one, like really, really, really like it, especially in this first batch.
Yeah, I'm only 4 books in, so one of them's got to be the worst.
That's right. One of them, exactly. Yeah.
From everything I've been told, I think once I get to around book 8 or 9, some of those might be towards the bottom. But that's what a lot of people, a lot of people said, and so Dragon.
Hey, and on the counter to that, I actually say, hey, I say. You might be surprised.
I'm not there, but that's just what I've been told. That's what I feel like. That's the thing everybody is.
I know.
Is.
Yeah, I know.
Some of those later books, I just kind of.
And I'm going to start saying those are going to be the best books. That's the best one yet to come, just to be the counter, to all those.
I mean,
voices.
my seventh, favorite, my number 7 in Harry Potter, where not book number 7, but what I would put in 7th place, I still think is a good book. I mean,
Yeah, it's like the worst Song of Ice and Fire book or Game of Thrones book is still one of the best books out there.
I mean, exactly. I mean, I'd probably say Chamber of Secrets is my number 7 in the Harry Potter books. But
wow,
I mean, I still like that book.
I
read it in a day.
We just lost a ton of listeners.
Oh my gosh!
I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, it's not Order of the Phoenix or.
I mean, next you're going to be saying things.
Now. I mean, come
next
on
you're going to be saying things like, of the 3 originals, I'd probably put Empire at the bottom. Still a great movie, but Empire, Strikes Back.
I mean,
probably,
it's not Return of the Jedi.
You're darn right, my friend. You're darn right.
It doesn't have Max Rebo Band in it. So.
It literally is Go in Reverse Order. That's true. Yeah.
I don't know. See,
I'm just only talking about the trilogy.
Yeah.
I was only talking about the original.
Oh, I know, but even still, I think I do think maybe I prefer. Nah, I don't know. I think I do maybe. Sometimes I go back and forth on 4 and 5. 4's an amazing movie. They're all great.
I go back and forth on 5 and 6. So yeah. Anyway, just some fun kind of. When we get halfway through, we'll do another ranking. See where Matt stands on the books.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right, guys. Hey, well, with that, we want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing the Shadow Rising chapters 34 through 43.
Yeah, and we might cut that a chapter short or two there. It's just kind of on the fly. I wanted to see maybe we stretch this to 43, but we'll kind of make a decision there as I hear how Matt's doing, just with the reading and where we're at. We'll kind of play that by ear. But for sure, I would be safe. You can read up through chapter 43 there. So. All right, if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon, and remember that the grave is no bar to our call.